Good evening, everyone. I think we're still going to get quite a few people dropping in as we go, but we are going to kick things off, and I will continue to let people in as we go. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's session. We are joined by Charlie Hyman, who, as you can see on the screen, is going to do a presentation, and it's really going to reflect, hopefully, the journey that Charlie's been on with his organisation, Bloomsbury Football, and hopefully will resonate with people that are on this call. I know there's lots of people on the call that have started their own clubs. There's lots of names I recognise, or have just started their clubs, or want information about how to grow their club, especially at the moment where we're all sort of locked down, probably thinking about how we can return to football and make it the best possible experience. So just a few little bits of housekeeping. I am recording the meeting tonight. So if you, for whatever reason, don't want to be seen on recording, then just turn off your camera so it doesn't sort of flick through and show up. Other bits of housekeeping, the recording that I've just mentioned, that is going to go onto our new Surrey FA Clubhouse area. So we have got a dedicated area of our website. It went live last week, and it's going to house all sorts of development content that are going to be specifically for people like yourselves. So people that run clubs, run leagues, they're involved as administrators. So we've got a brand new technical area for coaches. We've got a brand new fifth official for referees, and there's a home called the Clubhouse for all content that is going to be interesting to people like yourselves. So tonight's recording will go live onto the Clubhouse probably tonight or tomorrow, so you can watch it back. And I've posted in the chat function the link to the Clubhouse. One other thing just to mention is myself and Marcus from Surrey FA are both on the call tonight, and we will monitor the chat function. So if you've got any queries or questions, please put them in the chat, and then we will put them to Charlie, or we'll find a natural break, or we might say to you, look, do you mind just asking that question that you've posted? And one thing, we're talking about club engagement tonight. One thing that we are running the first ever Surrey FA E-County Cup. So for those people that don't know what an E-County Cup is, it's going to be sort of, for those people that have a PlayStation, they can join in and they can get involved with a sort of virtual competition. We've got 40 clubs signed up, and we're looking for people to sign their clubs up, and then you can have someone represent your club at the Virtual County Cup. So I'm just posting a link in the chat function there. So if you want to sign your club up and you've got someone in your club that is great on the PlayStation and fancies themselves competing against other people, then it's a great opportunity for us to engage people with that process while we're in lockdown. So please sign up to that. And without further ado, we're going to get started. So I'm going to hand straight over to Charlie. So Charlie, thank you for joining us. Off you go.
Yeah, no worries. Evening, everyone. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to obviously come and listen. Hopefully there'll be some stuff here that you'll find interesting and useful for you and whatever role you have in your club. Just going to the first slide. So I think it's always important to kind of set the context with these things. I'm doing a podcast with Surrey FA next week where I'll talk more specifically about sort of my own journey, but I think it's relevant to kind of tell you a little bit about my background for the purposes of the rest of this evening's presentation. So I sort of started my coaching journey when I was at sixth form, still at school. That was with Fulham Foundation, where I basically went along, started doing some sort of open sessions, did my level 1, worked up, did my level 2, went off to university, where I continued coaching whilst I was at uni. Finished uni, decided, yeah, I definitely still want to work in football. And set up my own organisation, and that was where Bloomsbury was founded. The idea being to set something up that was really, really high quality in what it provided, but that was accessible to everyone. So we've been going 2.5 years and grown from kind of just starting out with one group of kids in central London to where we are today. We've got sort of 12 full-time staff members. We engage a few thousand kids every week across London, and still growing pretty quickly. I thought it would be worth mentioning as well. So I play futsal myself. Obviously, some of you might have heard of about the news with the cutting of the futsal budget, which I don't want to go into too much. But before the FA decided to sort of discontinue the international pathway, I was playing international futsal, and then I play club futsal as well for Pro Futsal, who are in the National Super League. So big advocate of futsal as well. I have attended loads of these sort of webinars myself, looking for kind of knowledge, tips, ways that I can improve the way in which I run Bloomsbury and improve the club as a whole. And often I find that they're quite general and there's not a lot of actionable insights. So I want to try and be as specific as possible and share real information that I think you can take on and use for your organisations to improve them. My aim is to make Bloomsbury itself as good as it can, but I understand that for me to reach my vision, I guess, of getting as many kids involved in a great setup and have a good experience of playing football as possible, we need to improve the overall standard of grassroots sport across the country. And so I'm keen to kind of share my knowledge and share everything that I've learned so that others don't make the same mistakes and others can take the good bits and improve their provision. So I'm happy to share everything, anything we do. I'm not one of those coaches who has like a secret coaching syllabus that they don't want to share with anyone, or they've got session plans that they don't want to share. I'm happy to kind of reach out and speak to people and share anything we do. And I'll definitely share my contact info at the end. So yeah, I'm going to start by chatting a little bit about club structure. My slides aren't fancy at all. I think it's better just to have clean slides, but good information rather than flash ones with loads of animations. So in terms of club structure, obviously a lot of you will already be set up and running clubs. Some of you may be just starting out, but I think it's worth being aware of the range of different structures that are out there and available. I've seen a lot of organizations, including ourselves, move from one structure to another. That might be something that happens further down the line because your requirements change, your size of your club changes. It might be quite early on just because you didn't realize that there was this better option that actually fits what you want to do better than what you've currently got. So just to start with, I think the most important thing when starting up or even when running a club is to understand your why. So why are you running the organization? What's the aim of it? What's the point? And once you've understood that, you've then got to decide, right, what am I going to do? What programs am I going to run in order to achieve that aim? So it could be getting young people active. Great. How am I going to do that? I'm going to run 10 teams from under 7s to under 15s, so whatever it is. And then I'm going to measure that success and check that I'm reaching those goals using a defined set of metrics which you set out. So it could be, we want to engage 300 young people. Cool. So as soon as we've engaged 300, that's success for us. So I think when you first set out, or even once you are up and running, having a clear set of goals by which you know what you're aiming for and whether you're being successful or not is really, really important. And that will define which club structure, which sort of legal entity is best for you. So start with the why, then look at club structure. Don't go club structure, then decide on why. In terms of the club structure, so unincorporated and incorporated basically means incorporated, you're recognized as a legal entity. So you're either like a limited company, those 4 options below, CIC, I'll come on to these in a minute, or you're unincorporated. A lot of sports clubs will start out and still run perfectly happily as unincorporated. That's often a group of people, they get together, they may have like a memorandum of understanding or a list of rules that they want to follow, but they are not a legal entity in their own right. So as soon as you are signing contracts to rent pitches, hiring any staff, organising an event or tournament, I would strongly advise you look at becoming incorporated, because anything that sort of brings a chance of debt or money crossing hands, you would be personally liable for that money if you're unincorporated. Whereas if you're incorporated, the company is liable, not you. So yeah, basically, I would really encourage looking to get incorporated as one of sort of these 4 structures that I'll chat about now. So I've put this kind of double-headed arrow here. All these 4 structures are very, very different and serve different purposes. But generally, a limited company is profit-making, quick and easy to set up, very flexible. You can kind of do what you want with it, but in return, you obviously have to pay taxes on what you do back to the government. Whereas opposite end of the spectrum is a charity. you get the tax relief because you're providing for the public benefit, but that obviously comes with stricter guidelines of what you can and can't run. You have to adhere to particular pieces of governance and ownership structures. So that's broadly kind of the spectrum, and where these sort of models sit within that spectrum. So a limited company, as I said, usually exists to make profit. It has shares and shareholders. You would obviously pay corporation tax on those profits. One advantage is that you would own that company. You can sell shares, you can raise capital by people investing and buying shares, and it's super easy to set up. I think you could literally do it in sort of an hour on the government website. A CIC stands for Community Interest Company. This is actually a type of limited company, but the difference is that it exists to benefit the community rather than to benefit its shareholders. So the assets of the company would be used to further its social objectives, if that makes sense. So rather than making profit and paying it out to the shareholders, when you set up a community interest company, you would have a constitution, so sort of a list of rules that you would abide to, and that would say that only X amount of money can be given out to shareholders. Most of it has to be reinvested back into furthering the sort of social outcomes of the organisation. An advantage to having a CIC over a limited company is you may be eligible for particular grants and funds that exist to fund kind of social projects, community projects, where a limited company wouldn't be. But you don't get much, if any, sort of tax benefits that a community amateur sports club or charity would get, which I'll come on to now. So Community Amateur Sports Club was actually set up rather recently as an entity by the government. The idea behind it was to offer an easy way for sports clubs to set up, but to be able to access the tax benefits that a charity would get. So it's probably the most common structure for sort of youth football clubs at the moment. And in order to be a community amateur sports club, you basically have to just promote sport, so promote participation within sport, and or provide facilities that then allow sport to happen on them. And obviously, if you meet that, which youth football clubs do generally, and you're not for profit, it's worth noting, then you can claim gift aid on donations as one sort of key benefit. Just to quickly explain what gift aid is, because I know not everyone understands it. There is a lot of information out there online. So if someone donates £10 to your organisation, the government will give you an extra 25%. So you will be able to get £10 plus claim an extra £2.50. Therefore, you get £12.50 in total. And the person who donates it is able to claim that money back off their tax bill. That may make absolutely no sense to you. It's worth taking a look, but that can be massively powerful if you can get 25% extra on any donations that your organisation's receiving over a year. That can be a lot of money. So that's one thing. And then up to a certain point, again, I would advise you to check the limits. They have changed recently. You basically are exempt from paying corporation tax. All the membership fees, so people who are members of the club, the fees they pay, they're exempt from corporation tax. So definitely some clear benefits there to being a community amateur sports club. The limitations are around the amount of money that you can sort of bring in as revenue from renting facilities and from charging for services before you then have to pay corporation tax. Whereas a charity, which I'll come on to now, you don't have those limits. So charity is slightly different from the other three in that you register with the Charity Commission when you set one up. There are a few different types of charities sort of within the charity. It's not, well, there's different types of charities you can register as, which have different governance models. As an example, we're a CIO, and so our board of trustees are our voting members. The opposite of that would be where all the members of the club, i.e. everyone who's a player for the club, is a voting member. You have an AGM, everyone gets a vote on particular things, particular changes to the club's constitution. So again, it depends on your organisation, what your aims are, what's right for you. Charity is a great model, but you have to be exclusively for the public benefit. So everything you run has to be in line with your charitable constitution. So, for example, it could be to improve young people's lives using sport. That could be your message. So all the money you receive needs to be invested in order to further that object, if that makes sense. So a little bit stricter in terms of governance, but the benefits are there in that you don't pay any corporation tax. You're able to claim gift aid. You get the prestige and status that comes with being a charity. I've found that it gives, it holds a lot of weight, especially, for example, when speaking to sort of the local authority about facilities. It could be speaking to companies about purchasing equipment or kit, discounts, trusts, foundations, grants that you apply for. You'll be eligible for everything, whereas a CIC may not. It may only be eligible for some things. So there are some definite benefits there, and that's the model that has worked for us. There's a lot more to each one. That was kind of a brief overview just to make you aware of the different structures, because I think it's important to think about which one works best for you as a club. There are definitely cases where a club might be running as a limited company, but if they're running as a community championship sports club, they'd be saving literally tens of thousands of pounds a year for doing exactly the same thing. So it really is worth taking a look into and doing some research about. Second thing I want to speak about, moving on from club structure, is around player recruitment. So this is a big thing, obviously, for all clubs, is how do you get people along? How do you make sure that you continue to get people along over a period of time so that you have enough players for teams, you can fill up sessions. This isn't sort of everything. I've actually picked out a few key parts that I think might be particularly interesting for you to hear about, rather than the kind of general stuff that is out there already that you can probably find online. So in no particular order, I'll start with internal league. So this is something that we as Bloomsbury have run for a while now. The way it works is that we will split up Bloomsbury players into teams. We call them by colours. So we'll have like Bloomsbury red, green, yellow, blue, etc. And we run these for year 1 and year 2. So we're talking 5 and 6 year olds before they would enter the under 7s, where obviously they would start playing league matches. But you can do this for 7s and 8s depending on what age your club starts playing matches. And we found that, one, kids absolutely love it, and it's literally the highlight of their week. But 2, it gives those kids the opportunity to play some structured matches before they get exposed to the league for the first time. So they understand when it's a corner, how to take a throw in, these things that otherwise they hit under 7 season in September and they haven't got a clue what's going on. We run it as sort of silent sidelines. And without coaches. So the coach doesn't say anything, the parents don't say anything, the coach just refs the game and we let the kids play, and it just gives them a chance to kind of make decisions for themselves and experience what it's like to play a kind of organised match. So that works really well for us, especially for the younger age groups, at getting kids in consistently and getting them ready to then sort of start at under 7s. Second one is schools. Obviously, that's where there's kids that might want to join your team. I think there's probably 2 core things with schools that work really well, again, for us. One is flyering. So just speaking to the school and saying, look, we are doing X, Y, and Z. It would be great for your pupils to come along. They get more exercise, etc., etc. Would you be happy to hand out some flyers for us? Most schools will say yes. The second one is to provide sessions for the school. So as a potential extra revenue stream, obviously you can provide sessions, but we've actually found that it's more valuable to provide free sessions. But in return for those free sessions, we would ask for the data of the kids. So we would say to all the parents at the school, we're going to run a free after school club. You've got to sign up here. And in the sign up process, they would obviously sign up, give us their email address, and we're happy to run the school sessions for free. It costs us whatever, 15 quid to put a coach in to run the session. In return, you've got 30 kids that you can then market your teams to, your holiday courses to. So it's not always a case of, oh, it's going to cost us £15 to run, therefore we're not going to do it. Actually, the return you get from running that session, so long as you're able to market your sessions to the kids, could be far, far greater than the cost outlay for that coach to go in. So that's one to consider. Obviously, the school will be excited about it if it's free for them. So yeah, I would definitely have a look at reaching out to schools. Word of mouth, I think, is always and probably will always be the biggest recruiter as such of kids to teams, to sessions, to clubs. But I think what people sometimes forget is that you can create and amplify that word of mouth. So it's about doing things that make people talk about you. So if you're providing much, much better training sessions in the club down the road, when those parents see those other parents at the school gate, it's going to be, oh, did you know so-and-so, they're doing this? Or they're superb because of this, this, and this. Speaking to parents and asking them to speak to other parents is a great way. Most parents are super happy to help. I think people sometimes are hesitant to approach parents for help, but actually they're invested members of the organisation of the club. They bring their kid along, they commit a lot of time to being involved already. And usually they'll be more than happy to be involved. In fact, they'll be delighted that you've asked them. So do ask. Email newsletters, I think, is something that's really undervalued. So we spend too much time probably on social media, uploading kind of Instagrams, tweets, etc. But as a percentage of our time spent, I think if you spent it on a newsletter, you'd probably see kind of a higher return on that investment. So a newsletter obviously keeps people up to date and keeps your existing customers with a knowledge of what's going on at your club. And it's much, much easier to retain existing players than it is obviously to acquire new ones. And they're already customers who, you know, love what you're doing and want to know more about it. And often a newsletter which updates them, tells them what's going on at the club, will spark them to think, oh, I could help by doing this, or oh, that's great that they're doing that, let me go and ask other players. So I think something that a lot of clubs could easily have that they may not is an email newsletter that just gives out good information about what's going on at the club to its existing members. Social media, I don't want to speak much about it. It's a whole full-time job in itself to do it well. The short piece of advice that kind of I'll give is that if the content that you're putting out isn't engaging, then there's no point in putting it out. So my kind of error, sort of early stages of running our social media accounts, was just posting, for example, like a flyer with a new session that's coming up, or like a notice about how we had training on Saturday and it was good. That's fine for updating your existing members if that's what the aim of your social media is. But new people aren't going to follow you to see that flyer to sign up to your sessions, because it's not engaging. It's not going to get a lot of likes and a lot of engagement on your timeline. So it's as good as the content is. If it's not engaging, no one's going to see it. So it doesn't matter that it's got a great message or is really interesting. Is probably the best piece of advice I can give. But as I said, I don't want to spend too long on social media because that's a whole separate topic. I think flyers are really undervalued, even more so maybe than newsletters. Again, like, you've got to think about the small amount of resources you've got, whether that be funding or your time, and using them most effectively. So is it best to spend 10 hours making nice posts and pictures and putting them on social media? Or would it be better off spending 10 hours doing half an hour standing outside a school saying, here's flyers, we're doing a new session, and you're marketing directly to people who you know live near, you know are the right age group, and you might get 5 kids along in half an hour's work versus 1 kid along in a month on social media. So I think it is really important to step back and actually think, look, what am I doing? What works? The things that work are the things that I should put most time into. Rather than, oh, I'm going to update my Instagram because it looks nice, but actually it doesn't really bring any value to the club. One more tip for flyers. I think we've seen a bit of a renaissance with QR codes through COVID because of track and trace, but we've actually recently been sticking QR codes on our flyers that link directly to kind of the sign up form on our website. And that's really, really up the kind of conversion rate that we're seeing from people who we give the flyers to. Plus, it's trackable, so we can give 100 flyers to one group of kids, 100 to another, and we know which group have signed up from which flyers. We can send them to different pages on the website. So really easy to do. Happy to help anyone who wants to know how, but adding a little QR code to flyers is worked really well for us. Community groups, simple one, but again, sometimes forgotten. You need to find out sort of who your audience is and where are they. So there's schools, but there's youth centres, there's residents associations, there's religious groups. Start by building relationships with these and go in there with a give rather than an ask. So it's not, hi, youth centre, can you market our session, send us all the kids that come. It's, oh, we can help promote your youth centre to our kids. Then in return, they might say, okay, well, we're happy to form that partnership and sort of signpost young people to your sessions. But to start with, I think it's really important that you go in with a give rather than an ask for sort of any partnership, sponsorship, which we'll come on to in a minute, that you're trying to form. And then branding, again, I think really, really important. The kit, the logo, the feel. You want people, both players and parents, to be proud to be a part of your brand and whatever your club or organization stands for. So having smart kit is something that attracts players. Having nice pictures, which are easy to do. Like if you can get a photographer to come down for one session for 40 quid and they take 100 photos and you use those across social media and your website, that immediately lifts your brand because you've got some high quality pictures. I see so many organizations out there with awful pictures, in all honesty, when it's so easy in this day and age to get some good high quality stuff that really makes your brand stand out. So do take the time to create a brand that is attractive to players and that kids are excited to be a part of. We're competing in this day and age more and more with, well, it's more and more competition for kids' attention. We're thinking of like sort of Fortnite, Netflix, YouTube. The temptations for these kids to do other things and not engage with your programs and not come to training are massive. So we need to do all we can to have a great digital presence and to look really, really smart, attractive, exciting, engaging to young kids. So that is something that, especially at the moment where there's time where you're not delivering sessions, would be something I would definitely look at investing time and resource into. So next part is around resource. I've called it resource and not sort of funding, because I think people always think about funding, but they don't, and funding to them means money, but there's actually a lot of resource out there, which I'll come on to in a minute, which isn't just about money, and people's time can be just as valuable, if not more valuable. So sponsorship is the one I want to speak about sort of in the most depth. I think sponsorship is really, really difficult. Obviously, there's huge competition. Everyone wants sponsors. Everyone wants more funding. And it's hard because these companies or people you're going to approach get approached by all sorts of different people, probably all the time, looking for sponsorship. My advice, or sort of my steps to doing it and how we've done it and what's been successful for us, is to start by working out what assets you have, both digital and physical. So your digital assets could be your social media channels, your newsletter, you've probably got a website, videos that you put out, any content where you could place maybe a sponsor's logo, or you could create some sort of content with that company. Your physical assets would be the kit, is the most common one, but also things like banners. Could you put the logo on flyers? Could you print their logo on bibs, footballs, all these other things? So working out what is there where you can give them marketing and exposure, basically, for their sponsorship. Then the next part is what you can offer to the sponsor. Coming back to my point about going in there with a give rather than an ask. I think before you think about what the sponsor can give you, you need to think about what you give the sponsor. So put yourselves in the shoes of the company or person you're approaching. What can you do for them is how you open the conversation. And I think there's two core parts to it. One is the corporate social responsibility, and one is the marketing. So to start with marketing, for that company, yes, they might be able to get some great marketing by posting their logo all over your videos or kit or footballs or wherever you choose to place them. Obviously, it depends on what that company is, who their target market is. So ideally, you want to find a company which matches the sort of target market and your audience. So it could be that you approach a sportswear brand who want to sell, I don't know, shin pads to kids, because that specifically matches your audience. Therefore, it may be worth them giving you X amount of money in return for your advertising. The corporate social responsibility part is something that is really, really growing amongst big companies, especially. So limited companies, corporations out there are becoming increasingly conscious about their social responsibility and their purpose and what they do to help society. And previously, or in the past, a lot of companies have just gone, oh, we'll sign a check to this charity, cool, here's our work done for the year. When they're moving away from that and they want to be actively involved. So they may want to give some money, but they actually want to help. They want their employees to do volunteer work. They want to support with resource, with advice. They want to be involved in the program rather than just signing a check. So that's great, because there's the potential for you to get more out of them and have a closer partnership and relationship with them than there may previously have been. I think when you're looking at who to target, you can look at local businesses. So they're similar audience because of their geographic location. You can look at similar businesses in their audiences based on the interests of the audience or the age. Obviously, kids, parents, families being the main one. I would start by reaching out to current parents of your clubs, because again, they're keen to help. Most of them probably have jobs, I would hope, and will be working at organisations, a lot of which will have pots of money dedicated for corporate social responsibility and sponsoring local charities, organisations that are doing good. I would put together a little deck, can be a one page, that just says, this is who we are, and this is what we can offer you, and this is what you would get in return. This is how we can work together. I think that if you just get the money, so let's say a sponsor gives you whatever, £5,000 at the start of the season, and you go, thank you very much, that's great, sponsored, that's only 1% of the job done. Once you've got the money, that is the start of the relationship, and it's important to sort of activate that sponsorship to do things throughout the season that involve that sponsor, that build on the relationship, so that at the end of the season you can go back and, one, ask for renewal, but two, maybe even ask for more, or ask to help and support different events throughout the season. So that would be my advice in terms of sponsorship. It is competitive out there, but if you go in with this is what we can do for you, and this is how we would spend the money if you gave it to us, then I think you've got a good chance, basically. Looking at grants, so not too relevant for limited companies, probably not. There's a few for sort of community interest companies, but mostly for CASCs, as they're called, so community sports clubs and charities. There are a lot of grants out there and people just don't know about them. So it is worth doing some research. I'll come on to it on, I think it's the last slide. I've got a few sort of organisations which help with identifying pots of money that may be available to you. My only real advice here is that it's best to find someone who is experienced and knows how to write these grants, identify them, which ones to apply for. I tried myself for the first sort of 12 months to do a few, didn't get any. Basically decided that actually it'd be worth paying someone to do them. And since then, sort of for every £1 we've spent on paying that person for their time, they've managed to bring in £6 of funding. So really, really good return on investment there. Would definitely recommend looking at finding someone who has that specific experience to do so. There is a lot of funding out there. At the moment, it's particularly competitive, obviously, with COVID. Everyone's strapped for cash, desperate for funding, and also because no one's running any activities, they've actually got so much time to basically sit around and write these applications. So it is really, really competitive, but definitely worth looking at investing in. Donors, you'd be surprised by how many people out there want to help. It's difficult to identify them and to strike up that conversation. A lot of the time, just your great work and updating people with newsletters, with social media, etc., will attract people to go, oh, I really like that, I want to support that. But sometimes it's a case of actually having an honest conversation. You know the parents at your club, you know who might have enough money to donate, you know whose company might have enough money to donate. My honest kind of thoughts on this is that there are more people out there who are happy to donate than you probably think. And if you can make a great case about where that money is going and why you need it, then it becomes more attractive. The model, kind of the explanation I always give is, imagine your organization is kind of a box. In one side, you're putting in time and funds. The box is all the different things you run, so teams, camps, whatever, after school sessions. And out the other side, you get increased confidence of young people, you get better health and activity levels of young people, etc., etc. For every £2 in, we're getting £6 of social value out the other side, social return, whatever you want to call it. So a donor could come along and go, right, well, if I give you another £2, can I get another £4 of that out the other side? Great, that's a great way for me to spend my money. If you're struggling with sort of how to calculate the outputs, because that is something difficult and there's a lot of kind of discussion around how that's done, Sport England has a really, really simple, it's called a social return on investment calculator, but they kind of have to calculate it. The Football Foundation calculates it themselves because they need to go back to the FA Premier League and say, we spent this much money on facilities and this is how much value it brought back in social return investment. So that is something I would look at as a club, because it will help you again with the sponsorship, with the grants, with donors, to attract that money and make a real case for why they should give you funding because you use it efficiently. Revenue, I've put revenue, all of these are obviously revenue, but I've called it that because I don't want to call it sales. But effectively, money in from fees, from camps, from tournaments, anything you can do to increase your revenue. I think obviously we don't want to push kids out of taking part based on the fees that we charge. So it's important to look for what other streams of revenue are out there. I think running tournaments is a great way. I think you can look at whether you can work in and run in schools and get the schools to fund the cost of that out of their sports premium budgets that they get from the government. It could be, I don't know, selling extra apparel. You could have, I know a lot of clubs at the moment, like a digital program. If that's going well for you, is that something you can continue once you are back in person and have maybe like £2 extra a month for subscription to a digital offering on top of your in-person sessions? I think there's a load of different ways to have additional revenue streams out there. And it's just about being creative and finding what can work for you. And then the reason I called it resource was because it isn't just about funds. In-kind support is often even more valuable than money. Corporate volunteering has been something that I've really accessed a lot of and has been really useful. So for example, it could be that you speak to a marketing agency and they donate their time to help you build a website. There's been no transaction of money. They've given you time basically to help you build a website. It could be that a group of volunteers from a local estate agent come down and help you run one of your tournaments. They staff the front desk, they give out waters, etc. So there's lots and lots of ways where you can get resource, but not just financially. And often that is much, much easier because people don't just want to sign off a check. They actually would like to be involved. It could be donations of furniture to a clubhouse. It could be support with business planning, financial planning. There's loads of different ways. So I think, again, that's one to be creative and have a think about because it isn't just about financials. Cool. So these are some of the kind of organizations when I was putting this together, I was just thinking earlier, like, who are some of the key organizations and things that we have that are really, really valuable to us and that are accessible to other people, that are worth sharing. So I'll go through them in kind of no particular order. So Sport England and Football Foundation I've put on there mostly because they've got some funding kind of specifically at the moment. So Sport England have a partnership with Crowdfunder where they will match money you can raise. So for example, you can run a campaign and say, right, we're going to raise £5,000 from all our members, and Sport England will then give you a £5,000 grant if you raise that £5,000. Therefore, you've got £10,000. So definitely worth trying, especially if you've got people at the moment. A lot of clubs may have people who are happy to continue to pay their fees as a donation to the club at the moment. A lot of people may have paid up front at the start of the season, but they're not getting any of their games or training. Is there a way that you could get them to donate those fees through Crowdfunder and then match it with Sport England? It's super easy to apply to, and it's open basically to any sports clubs. Sport England also have a pot of funding open at the moment, up to £10,000 you can apply for a grant for, but it's not for organisations that just run football. That's where the Football Foundation come in. They were going to launch their fund, which was going to be funded by Sport England, but Football Foundation would run it because there's just too many football clubs for Sport England to manage all the applications for. They haven't yet, because obviously football's now sort of not allowed under the current guidance again, but I'm pretty sure there will be a fund opening, so keep an eye out, specifically for grassroots football clubs, called sort of Return to Play, where there will be a good amount of funding available, and hopefully a pretty easy application process. Canva in the top right, really, really cool online sort of design tool. I would kind of describe it as something between kind of like a really, really easy to use Photoshop kind of thing. The reason I put it on there is they offer you 10 free licenses if you're a not-for-profit, so cask or charity. And it's got loads of cool templates. It's really nice to do all your flyers, social media posts, etc. on there. You can put your logo and your colors of your club. It will help kind of automatically design stuff. Really intuitive. Would definitely recommend checking it out. The middle two, so Sport and Digital Boost. Sported I want to talk about. They actually have been one of the 3 charities that the Times newspaper has supported. So they've just been, the Times managed to raise, I think, nearly like £3 million over the last month from donations, and Sported have got a third of that. So they've just got about 600 to 800,000, I think. Anyway, so they basically they support all sports clubs across England, I think it is, might even be the UK, and they match up clubs to volunteers with particular skill sets. I've been using Sported for a year, incredibly useful. So if you have a question about your governance, let's say, you can go onto Sport's website, you fill out a form that says basically, I need to support my governance, da 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 da. They will then link you up with a volunteer who for free will specifically spend a number of hours with you helping with that governance. It could be fundraising, so helping you identify pots of money to apply for. It could be putting together a marketing strategy. They are really, really good, and I'm happy to make any introductions to the guys there if anyone's interested. I've got my contact details on the next slide, so feel free to ask about that. Digital Boost is similar, but it's specific for digital. So if you need any help with running social media, email newsletters, your website, advertising online, all these sorts of things, similar in that you basically click through their website and they will match you up with a volunteer. You can literally within a day be linked up with like one of the top advertising people at Google to help you set up Google ads and run them for absolute free. So again, really, really useful. Have used it quite a few times for all sorts of different questions about digital stuff. I'll come down to the middle just on advertising. Google, hardly anyone seems to know about it, but basically if you're a not-for-profit, you get $10,000 a month free Google advertising spend. So you can advertise your club, your camps, your sessions, etc. And every month you can basically spend $10,000 and it costs you absolutely nothing. So as a combination there, it's worth potentially speaking to Digital Boost and getting them to help you sign up for the Google ads and help you to run them, because for recruitment, you can market all your sessions to anyone who Googles like football in Surrey for free, for thousands of pounds worth of kind of clicks and advertising a month. So definitely worth exploring that. Charity digital, again, on the topic of kind of being a charity, there's so many benefits out there with discounts for all sorts of things. So discounts for Microsoft Office, for Word, for all sorts of different bits of software. Anything really you buy online, anything I really purchase or book, I'll always say, oh, we're a charity, do you offer any discount? And most of the time they'll go, yeah, 10%, 20%, whatever it is off. So do consider that as kind of one of the key benefits. That website in particular has kind of a database of all the different programs and digital bits and bobs, hardware, phones, prints, etc., laptops that you can get a big discount on as a charity. And then Nike in the bottom left, obviously you're all aware of it, but we have been kind of wearing Nike kit and working with Nike since we started. Obviously it's something that every club has to decide on, is who they buy their kit with. Yes, Nike kit is the more premium end in that it does cost a bit more, but we have seen that it is worth spending that extra bit more on Nike. This isn't an advert for them. I don't work for Nike at all, but we found that, one, having that premium Nike brand has attracted kids and made kids want to play. I know it sounds sad, but they love putting on Nike kit. They see it as like the best kit. But more so, our kind of close relationship with Nike, us becoming a Nike partner club. The partner club scheme is great if you can get on it. They fund you £100 for every team you have affiliated. So if you've got 30 teams, they'll give you £3,000 towards coaching courses. So they give you that pot of money and you can get your coaches on courses paid for. Loads of other benefits. They do events. They will work with you to help with all sorts of stuff. We're doing a few different projects at the moment. Again, very happy to introduce people to kind of the contacts that I speak to there. They're always happy to talk to grassroots and community clubs. So yeah, they're kind of the core few that I thought worth mentioning. Obviously there are loads more out there, but if I had to kind of particularly recommend, I would look at using Sported, and also considering kind of what kit you wear and what you're getting from your suppliers, whether that's discount, whether there's anything else they can do for you other than just you purchasing the kit and wearing it. Because essentially, if you're wearing Nike kit, you're a massive advert for Nike. So what are you getting back from them would be my question for you to have a think about. So yeah, that's it for me. Sort of a brief overview of those kind of three core areas. Probably could have spoken for a while more about a few of those, but don't want to take too much of your time. Feel free to email me if you want any introductions to any of those. Let me know. Otherwise, LinkedIn is a good way to get hold of me. I'm pretty active on there. I'll pass over to Ashley for some Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. I will just add, there's a couple of things that leaped out at me from Charlie's presentation that I will sort of back up. And we didn't plan this, but the use of Canva is one of them. So I'm an advocate of Canva. I've been using it for a couple of years, and I've actually switched off PowerPoint and Google Slides, whatever. I now just use Canva. Really good, and it can help for those people that aren't maybe engage with social media. Like, it can just make it really easy. You can select a Facebook or Twitter template and put your design in, and it puts it and sizes it all up for you. A really good tool. And the other thing I would mention is Sported, fantastic charity. We've actually been directing a couple of new startups through Surrey FA. So for those of you that don't know, Sally, our chief executive. She's actually a Sported ambassador, so she is one of the volunteers who works with Sported. So you can approach Sported and they will partner you up with a local expert, for want of a better word. And Sally is our chief executive, is a member of Sported, and she goes out and does work as a sort of consultant ambassador. She gives her time for that. So we would definitely recommend Sported that Charlie's mentioned. If anyone's got a particular question and feels confident and wants to unmute themselves, then obviously feel free, and you can click the raise hand button, and I'll mute you if you want, or you can just shout out the question. You can put it in the chat function. But while I'm waiting for people to do that, I'm just going to answer some questions that came in from the booking link. So when you booked on, you had the opportunity to ask some questions. Charlie, I'm just going to put these ones to you. I know you've seen some of these already. So these are anonymous questions, I should say. One of the questions was, how do you grow multiple age groups whilst maintaining the same quality of coaching? So I suggest that's probably a question from a coach.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and that is difficult. I think the first thing is probably to accept that not all the coaches you have are going to be as good as you or your best coach, and it's actually a case of deciding kind of what is the minimum level that you would accept and you think it is good enough to coach. And once you're happy with kind of the non-negotiables as such, then it's important to put these down on paper and have maybe like a syllabus or a list of expectations of what you want from your coaches. A common kind of issue that I see is that coaches don't know that they're not doing well, or stuff that they're doing isn't the right thing. So just having those open kind of communications and saying, like, this is what we expect at our club, this is how we coach, this is what I'd like, this is how I'd like you to coach, and working with them to do that.
Yeah, and Charlie, I was going to add, because obviously a number of the people on the call tonight, maybe grassroots clubs, they will be relying on parents, etc. But I guess in some respects, and again, you have to play the long game slightly here, but as you've grown your reputation, you're probably now finding that coaches with a similar philosophy want to join yourself, whereas when you first started out, similar to people on the call, you were potentially reliant on people that you get your hands on, volunteers, parents. So you've kind of grown, I guess, and your philosophy is now well respected, that people want to join you, as opposed to having to scratch around to find coaches, because I know that can be a big challenge for clubs.
Definitely, yeah. No, finding good coaches is still a big challenge for us, and getting the right people involved. But I think it does come down to having that clarity of, this is who we are as a club, this is what we want to do. If you want to get involved with that, great, we'd love to have you. But if not, no worries. I think where the issues lies, where there's not clarity of, oh, I thought this was how you wanted me to do this, or I'm not sure about that. So putting something together and having that induction process with parents, regular meetings, going to maybe observe and see how they're getting on with their coaching, if you get the opportunity to do so, can be really helpful.
Yeah, and I should add that if anyone obviously as we've mentioned, Charlie's managed to grow his organisation and is now attracting coaches. Some people on the call might be finding that a challenge. There is an FA mentor programme, and if you find that you're struggling for coaches, or you would like to support your coaches to engage with a philosophy like Charlie's mentioned, then please do reach out to me and my team directly. As the education and workforce manager, our job is to support the workforce. So if you would like an FA mentor attached, or you want some tutor, or you want some education support to design a philosophy and try and do those things that Charlie's talking about, then please do reach out to us. I will just quickly, a couple more questions. Someone's mentioned, how do you grow sponsorship? So obviously it's something that I think we've all played grassroots football, haven't we, mainly, and you see the sort of local sponsors, mum or dad business or whatever attached, but how would you look to grow sponsorship?
I guess I've already spoken about it a bit. I think keep giving, I think, rather than keep wanting to get more, would be the best piece of advice I can give. Too many people just go in asking for more, rather than saying, we can offer this to you, and this is therefore why you should give us more. Proving your value is the other one. So having that really clear understanding of where the money's going and why their £1,000 investment, let's say, brings X amount of return, because for them it's a case of, well, if I can give my £2,000 to a mental health charity down the road who's going to provide better value, then I'm going to do that. So you need to be really clear of why there's a need for your club to exist, the amazing things that it brings to all these young people that it engages, and therefore why they should give you that funding for a particular outcome. I think, and the only other one would be just looking at, rather than looking at one sponsor and going, cool, hit this our sponsor season. If you are able to break up the different assets you have, then you might be able to get £4,000 from 6 different people rather than £10,000 from one, and have more funding overall. So working out different assets and where you can place different sponsors as well is a good thing to think about.
And Charlie, the final question from the group, the pre-set questions, if you like. Someone's asking around how they grow their club, but they specifically mentioned that they're a year and a half in, and obviously that's a really challenging year and a half, because the best part of 10 months. That's extremely tough. But I guess thinking back to when you founded Bloomsbury and when you were 18 months old, how did you look to grow? Where were the big areas that you accelerated your growth after that period?
Word of mouth is our biggest one, and I think it's probably everyone's biggest one. Just basically make sure that your priority is to care about the kids you have and give them the best service. And if you give a really, really good service, and put on very good sessions, have nice equipment, have good venues if you can afford them, then that is what will attract more people. That is what will make kids go and tell their friends, make parents, when they see them at the school gate, say to them, oh, have you seen this club? They do this really well. Oh, the coaching is great. Oh, they're really organised, all this sort of stuff. That is how you will mainly grow, like really, really quickly. Outside of word of mouth, just work out who your audience is. So like what age are you looking for, genders, abilities, then where are these people? So obviously it could be schools, it could be community groups, it could be that there's like summer festivals, fairs, events. How do you then reach them? Is that flyering? Is that digital marketing? But really breaking that down kind of granularly and saying, like, this is who we want to reach, this is where I can find them, and this is how I'm then going to reach them at those places, whether that's online or in person. Is how you can grow basically all the marketing that isn't the word of mouth side of things. But yeah, it's tough. Overall, it is just a case of, like any business, if you're providing something great and better than other ones, then you're going to do better than them. If you're better than the club down the road, it's more likely that kids are going to come and join yours. So just kind of strive to offer the best service you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, everyone that's on the call, you've obviously got people like Charlie that are happy to share their experiences. And Surrey FA is quite keen. We've had some successful club and league forums over the last few months, where actually we found that it's local clubs or organisations like Charlie's that share ideas and best practice. They can actually be the most powerful. So we are going to be running a club webinar once we know when the return of football is, and we don't know when that is, but when we do, we will be hosting some webinars in the lead up, and those will be club and league forums for people to come on and share best practice in a similar way that Charlie has. So rather than it just being Surrey FA saying this is what we can do to support you, yes, we are obviously here, we've got the clubhouse, we've got loads of support and development tools and development team and personnel, but actually those club forums are a little bit like tonight, where we can ask questions of people and find out what's worked for them, and you are then seeing people that are similar to yourself, if you like. I think that probably rounds off the evening. Those are a selection of questions that I have picked out from those people that put them to us previously. Again, if you want me to unmute you and you've got a question, feel free to just click the little hand icon in Teams, and if you're not familiar, just at the top right, and then I'll unmute you and you can ask your question if you want to. But it doesn't look like we've got any further questions for you, Charlie. Just to finish off for myself then, to say a massive thank you to Charlie for getting involved and giving up his time. The podcast, the Stoppage Time, that's the Surrey FA Stoppage Time podcast, will be out next week. I download it personally from Spotify. I think it is potentially available from other sources. So if you want to download that and hear a little bit more about Charlie's story, probably focusing more on futsal and his journey and how he again touches upon Bloomsbury, then please download that from next week. That's the Stoppage Time podcast if you need to search for it, and it's on the Surrey FA website as well if you need it. Other than that, thank you for your time, Charlie. Thank you for your time, everyone that's joined us. The recording will go live on the website, so if you want to take a look at it, check out the chat function and just click on that link that I posted first up to take you to the clubhouse. Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks very much, everyone.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, everyone. That's Charlie.